Here's the thing. Episode 2. We got a great show for you guys today. We got the one and only Benjamin Dixon, host of the Benjamin Dixon Show. Welcome, man.
Jeff, thanks so much for having me, man. It's been too long. We have to do this more often.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Look, Ben and I, we have had discussions before, but I don't think that we've been able to sit down and do what we're doing, what we're planning on doing today. So I want to thank you for taking time out on your Saturday, and
no problem.
Like, and just coming here and doing this with me because, it's gonna be a fun show. Let's just say that.
I'm looking forward. Hey, man, thanks for having me. It is like I really love doing these conversations, and as we were talking about off air, I haven't had a chance to have you on the show, so we're going to schedule that as soon as possible. So whatever we do here, whatever we do today, part 2 is coming up on my show.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to that. So you are the Bloomberg Slayer, the oligarch slayer.
Hey, yeah, that's it's pretty cool, man. I peaked. Like, that's probably going to be the highlight of my career. So it's all good. I don't think it's a bad thing to have been able to, peak and take down, probably the worst threat. I know we're having a hard time right now with Joe Biden, but I would rather be fighting this fight against Joe Biden than to be fighting this exact same fight against Michael Bloomberg.
Yeah, no, look, both of them have had some serious issues, especially when it comes to sexual harassment, sexual assault, and saying terrible things. Joe Biden is, to me, I don't know if you buy into this, but he's got some serious mental decline from what I'm seeing.
Oh yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Like, it's evident, and it's painfully evident, and it's really sad that the establishment is just pushing this along the way. They're so desperate to keep power in the status quo, right? That they are willing to basically do a weekend at Biden's, like weekend with Bernie, and just drag this man who's half dead along the way. And he doesn't have the mental capacity to now listen, when he did that debate with Bernie Sanders, you could clearly see he was hocked up on something. They had given him some type of shot, some booster, where he was he looked good. He was able to, go toe to toe. And I guess they're saving that shot for the time he has to go up against Donald Trump. But everything in between, you see the real Joe Biden, and he is seriously suffering from cognitive decline.
Yeah, it was like the Biden of old. You guys, you remember when he was debating against Paul Ryan. I mean, look, he as many problems, as many gaffes as he had firm mental control. He was there. He was awake. He was alive. And now you cannot say that anymore.
You can't. And it's and the problem is that it's going to be, even if they can pull it off, right? It still shows the level of desperation that this establishment, how far they're willing to go to maintain control underneath the status quo in this country. And the problem is that the status quo is hurting a lot of people, as evidenced by what's going on around us right now. Where is the establishment? Where is the Democratic establishment in terms of fighting on behalf of the 30.3 million people who lost their jobs in the last 6 weeks, and the 60,000 people that had died in this past month alone from COVID-19? We have a complete abdication of duty. There's a vacuum, and the Democratic establishment, as it is not doing anything about it. So as they're fighting to protect the status quo is extremely harmful to a lot of people.
Yes, absolutely. And look, this entire COVID-19 situation has really dropped the masks off of everything. The failures of the establishment, the failures of the status quo, and obviously the complete moral bankruptness of both parties in general. Where you have one party that's like, I don't know, just let everybody go out and die. Survival of the fittest, right? Yeah. And then you've got out of touch Nancy Pelosi out there, right next to her, $10,000 refrigerator, talking about how much ice cream she has. Oh, look at how great I'm doing in my mansion.
Right. And then the sheer, so we have been surrounded by sociopaths, and it's very hard to come to terms with the fact that people that you were once in league with have actually been just as much the problem as your other enemy, right? I put a lot of stock into opposing conservatism because it's a very straight line from the problems that we have in our country right now to the conservative ideology. But now the veil has been ripped, and we can see very clearly that the Democratic Party has no intention of being the party of the people, and they're just interested in getting just enough votes to maintain their own power in their group of friends and their comrades versus doing anything to help the people. So that was a really revealing moment, and COVID-19 has been especially adept in revealing the problems with the Democratic Party.
Yeah, this is part of the discussion that I was having with Farron Cousins last week on the show. Where do we fit in anymore? I mean, we don't fit in the Democratic Party anymore. It's not. Yeah. And the thing is you're right about this. It's like we had this idealized version of the Democratic Party in our heads back in 2015, 2016. Before all this shit went down. Oh, the conservatives are bad. The Democrats are the good guys. And, they just sometimes have to make sacrifices, but if given the choice, they would choose to go left and do these progressive things. And now we find out that is an absolute fabrication. That is a lie. That is fake. And now where are we? Where are we with this establishment that hates us? Honestly, I do believe they hate us.
They hate us more than Trump. Yeah, they hate us more than they hate Republicans. And so there's a couple of things that you said there. Where do we go? What do we have? I don't know the answer to that one just yet. I mean, I think we could try to figure that out. But in terms of the amount of disdain that they have for us, it is very clear. And it became extremely transparent when they brought in Michael Bloomberg. See, the thing with Michael Bloomberg to me and the willingness of the Democratic Party to coalesce around him, like they were getting ready to coalesce around Michael Bloomberg. And their willingness to do that, though, told me that we were dealing with characters and actors who had no intention of engaging in good faith. In other words, the entire time we gave them the benefit of the doubt. The entire time we figured maybe we could just explain it to you a little bit better. Maybe if you look at this economic theory, we can explain why means testing isn't the best way to go versus universal. We just felt like if we can explain it better, that they would get it. And the entire time, these motherfuckers have been playing us.
Absolutely. And look, we got the first kind of snippet of that, right? The first kind of example of that, really. When you took down when you actually went against Michael Bloomberg, when you just went back and you just found the clips, right? It's not like you it started coming up with these attacks. No, you just went back and you went back and you looked into the history and said, hey man, this is the stuff that he actually said. Are we okay with this? And the response from the establishment was utter disdain. You're a Russian bot. You're a Trump supporter. You're privileged, right? I'm pretty sure you've heard that you're privileged, which is hilarious.
Yeah. It's convenient while they can. So I don't know, man. The more you talk to me about this, the more I ready just go burn some shit down, right? Because it's all opportunistic. People are only marginalized based on whether the Democratic Party can use them. Right? People are only privileged based on whether or not the Democratic Party can attack them or needs to attack them. And so all of these things, listen, this thing with Joe Biden, the entire Me Too movement, all women should be believed until it's inconvenient for the Democratic Party. So I'm sorry, I do get that under no uncertain terms that Donald Trump is dangerous and that Donald Trump needs to be beat. And that Donald Trump is going to literally cause more people to die than had to die from this virus. And so I believe all hands on deck to get rid of Donald Trump, but I don't believe in selling my soul in order to get rid of Donald Trump. Some of these problems pre-existed Donald Trump. They're going to be here after Donald Trump, and the Democratic Party isn't doing anything right now to help us in the midst of this crisis. What the fuck are you waiting on? You think this is your opportunity to show your leadership leading up to you getting back to the White House, and you're not showing any leadership. So why should I add on top of that the need for me to sell out my soul in order to support the Democratic Party? So So, in terms of where do we go, it's a rock and a hard place because we do need to get rid of Donald Trump. At the same time, I'm not selling my soul to do it.
So this brings up an interesting question. So, look, you see this a lot on social media, right? Because you are very prevalent on social media. There's a lot of vote shaming going on, right? So for me personally, back in 2016, I kind of was a part of that. Like, hey, you need to vote for Hillary Clinton because Trump's a disaster. I know it sucks, but Trump's a disaster, and you got to make a tactical vote. And if you're not, I mean, it kind of is helping Donald Trump. Now, this year, I'm like, whatever. You're going to vote. You're going to vote for whoever you're going to vote for. And I'm going to, I don't even know what I'm going to do at this point, right? Because I don't know. I don't know. And so you're going to do you. I'm going to do me. And I'm not going to vote shame. Look, I'm not going to vote shame if you're going to vote for Joe Biden, because I understand. I'm not going to vote shame you if you're not going to vote for Joe Biden, if you're going to vote for a third-party candidate. The only way that I would vote shame you is if you were like, because like, okay, look, I get it, like, but you're trying to burn the house down even faster. You're going to throw gasoline on the fire. That I don't agree with.
So, and it's not. It's anyone who actively votes for Donald Trump, it is as morally reprehensible as people who feel like they should not vote for. If you think people should not vote for Joe Biden, then you can't turn around and say I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. If one is morally reprehensible, the other one is equally morally reprehensible. Yeah. So whatever you decide to do, I don't give a shit at this point. Like, the Democratic Party made their bed, and it's gonna go the way it's gonna go. Like, we're in the middle of this pandemic, and I don't care what anybody says. Like, Hillary Clinton lost because Hillary Clinton lost, right? You didn't have the majority. I even think Kyle Kalinske, I have to go back and listen to some of his stuff from back then, but I think he was basically like, hey, whatever you do, you do, right? But I don't think only real person on the left, independent media, that was like, vote against Hillary was probably Jimmy Dore at the time. But everybody else was like, do what you're going to do, blah, blah, blah. It's the lesser of two evils. And now, because the Democratic Party has really shown its ass and really given us the middle finger, just about everybody is like, you know what, fuck this. Whatever you do, I don't give a shit. Vote. But the thing is like with Donald Trump, a vote for Donald Trump obviously is as morally reprehensible as a Trump vote for Joe Biden. But at the same time, it's like, why are we in a position? Why are we yet again in a position where the Democratic Party has chosen a candidate who is going to be best suited to lose against Donald Trump? We warned them about Hillary Clinton. We sure as hell are warning them about Joe Biden, but they're making these decisions because I think everyone has come to the conclusion that they would rather lose with Joe Biden than to win with the progressive.
And so in this case, like, I thought originally, like, okay, what could be worse than 2016? That was a shit show, right? Oh, no, we have arrived at something far worse in 2016 because it's not as if, we didn't know that Joe Biden was a shit candidate, and it's not as if there weren't 20-plus other candidates that were better than I'm over here looking at Pete Buttigieg being all like, still kind of better.
He was, better kinda than, better. You had Inslee in there. You had, Amy Klobuchar. Honestly, in terms of beating Donald Trump, listen, if we want to do nothing else, let's say all things being equal, right? You cannot deny that Donald Trump's handling of COVID-19 is getting people killed. And it is so horrific that there's a possibility that every one of us are going to know somebody, or at least we're going to know somebody who knows somebody who died of this pandemic. So if all things being equal, you say, fuck everything else, how can we minimize actual deaths? Amy Klobuchar is a better bet than Joe Biden because they're getting ready to give this back to Donald Trump because they thought their big master stroke of political genius was to coalesce around Joe Biden, and it worked. But now they bought the form, and they got to stick with it.
Yeah, it really is a fucking disaster. I mean, look, at least with Amy Klobuchar, she's like, hey, you know what we're going to give you? Nothing. Fucking nothing. Exactly. What's under your chair? Dick. That's what's under your chair. But you know what? At least I'm honest about it. Joe Biden, I mean, you look at what Joe Biden's saying now, and he's doing this quote-unquote reach out to progressives. He's like, I see you, and I hear you. Yeah. Well, you know what? if you really heard us, you would know that we're saying Medicare for all and Green New Deal, and we didn't fucking stutter, now did we?
Jeff, this is the thing, man. Like, there is a huge political lane. Let's take the moral imperative out of this. Let's say you don't give a shit about morality and justice and concern for human beings. There is such a wide open lane for someone to step in the gap and say, hey, we've got 30.3 million people who are unemployed. Probably about 11 to 12 million of them lost their employer-provided insurance, as well as their family members. So there's probably a good 40, 50 million people who are now uninsured at the beginning of a pandemic. We have families who are having to shelter in place, and all we have given them is $1,200. So basically what I'm saying is there is a huge political opportunity for someone to come in and be a genuine populist because it is fucking needed at this moment. And it's the moral thing to fucking do. But instead, they're ignoring that political lane because that political lane requires them to talk in the language that they will be held accountable for. There's no more Barack Obama where you're going to come in and talk to us about progressive values and not do it. No, they understand now they cannot afford, the Democratic establishment cannot afford to flirt with progressivism anymore because the people are tired. And so what they have chosen to do is ignore what is both morally what is both a moral imperative as well as politically expedient. When in the history of politics in our lifetime has it been both the politically easy and expedient thing to do, and it aligns perfectly with the moral and just thing to do? And that's the lane that these fuckers are ignoring.
It is the moment. It is the moment for progressivism. As we keep going back to it, COVID-19 has really, exposed the injustices of the healthcare system, for example, that we have in the for-profit health insurance. We've got, there's no excuse to continue to stay with a system that, requires people to work, right, to get health insurance benefits with millions of people, 30 million people out of work, right? There's no justification for that anymore. There's no justification for health insurance companies to be able to say, well, we have this pandemic, and by the way, next year we're going to raise our rates, which are already unaffordable for millions of American families, especially at this time.
Yep.
By up to 40%. No, there's no justification.
And now the Democratic Party is leading the charge on getting a bailout for insurance companies. The insurance companies, not the people who lost their fucking benefits. And so Nancy Pelosi has made this proposition about the federal government paying for COBRA benefits when COBRA benefits are even more expensive than your standard benefits, right? Than your standard premiums. And so we're getting ready to open up the coffers yet again to give health insurance companies who are getting ready to raise their rates, who have just kicked about 30 million people, if you talk about their family members, right, kicked them off the rolls. And now Nancy Pelosi is leading the charge to give them money when people are at home literally trying to figure out how the fuck they're going to feed their kids without having to go out into the pandemic. This party is, they're really showing their ass in this moment, and I just don't know how we can justify how they can expect us. How the fuck do you expect us to stand by you when you're shitting on us?
And see, this is the issue, right? And so it's getting bad out there, and it hasn't even reached peak, right? So already, you're familiar with the protests that are going on, right? These are mostly conservative Trump supporters, right? So they don't represent the vast majority of people. But what the vast majority of people are feeling is like, hey, man, we don't have anybody that's representing us at all. We don't have the Democrats that are doing anything for us. They're against direct cash payments, okay? Now, to be fair, Nancy Pelosi has somewhat evolved and said, well, I guess we'll think about doing cash payments, even though she literally just gave away all of her leverage in the last bill. That was a gigantic bailout, right, for businesses. And they're not doing anything. The only person that has done anything was Senator Bernie Sanders, who, argued and successfully got into the first CARES Act a $600 federal benefit into, unemployment benefits. That's it. That's really it. It's basically been crumbs for us and gigantic bailouts for the rich. And again, it hasn't even gotten to the point of where it is bad enough. And yet, by the way, speaking on the point of bad, it's been just about over a month, right? It's about over a month, and people are hurting. There's talks about rent strikes There's actually that was happening yesterday, which I think is great because what we needed already was a moratoriums on rent and mortgages because nobody out there can afford rent and mortgage right now. But what do you expect with 30 million people out of work and absolutely no support? So I understand what some people are feeling, right? And again, I'm not talking about these right-wing protesters that showed up at Michigan, with no masks and no social distancing, brandishing their fucking guns around. What are you going to do, shoot coronavirus? No, they're all about saying, Gretchen Whitmer, we don't like her because she's a Democrat. And by the way, there are no protests in the states, the red states that have done this, Republican governors, or very little protests. And yet here, Gretchen Whitmer, who, by the way, I live in Michigan, so this hits home, right? So Gretchen Whitmer, it was not my first choice when it came to governor. The governor's race here had Abdul El-Sayed, right? Shri Tanadar, who fake populist progressive, right? And Gretchen Whitmer. I supported Abdul El-Sayed. He was still doing great work. And Whitmer is owned essentially by the health insurance companies, Blue Cross Blue Shield. She's actually doing a passable job in this. And so I find myself having to defend her in a way, and this sucks, right, because I hate having to do it, against these right-wing crazies. And it's only been, again, I have to stress this, it's only been a month, and then you get people like Alex Jones saying this shit.
I've extrapolated this out, and I won't have to for a few years since I got food and stuff, but I'm literally looking at my neighbors now and going, I'm ready to hang them up and gut them and skin them and chop them up. And you know what? I'm ready. My daughters aren't starving to death. I'll eat my neighbors. See,
he'll eat his neighbors.
My superpower is being honest. I'll eat your ass. I will. I'm combat model, optimum self-sufficiency, probably the leader. The point is have you thought about that yet? Because I'm somebody that thought I could fix this, and I'm starting to think about having to eat my neighbors. You think I like sizing up my neighbor, how I'm going to haul him up by a chain and chop his ass up? I'll do it. My children aren't going hungry. I will eat your ass.
Just over a month of this lockdown, right, of the quarantine.
Yeah.
And we get this from the right.
Yeah.
I imagine when it starts hitting, I mean, it already is hitting regular people. Imagine when regular people start to take to the streets, right? And this is the shit situation, right? This is the worst case, right? You have millions of people that can't make the rent, that can't pay their mortgages, that are going out in the streets. Not a good situation. Because not only is it a resurgence of COVID-19, and by the way, this is what the Republicans want. This is what they're doing, right? You live in Georgia, right? You live in Atlanta,
right? Georgia, yeah, right outside.
And
Atlanta,
so you're right in the middle of it, right? Because Brian Kemp, he's like, oh no, let's open it up. Let's open up the bowling alleys and the nail salons and all these places where you can't do social distancing, right? And let's open it up for the Karens and the Chads because they got to get their hair cut. Mm-hmm. And now you're already seeing a gigantic spike. 1,000 new COVID-19 cases in one day.
Yep, in Georgia. Yep. It's. So here's the thing. This is the paradox that we're in right now. COVID-19 is exposing. Not only exposing. So let me put it like this: COVID-19 is exposing to us that we're comfortable enough to talk about this rhetorically and politically, and the commentator class. To be honest with you, we generally did well enough to not be starving, and there's some downtime in that period, right? I've had some unemployment periods of myself where I had to sit in the unemployment line, but in general, the commentary class, we were doing decent, but COVID-19 came through and just said, this system is so fucking evil that they're going to send people out to their deaths. Here's a catch, though. If we're ready to hit the streets, which we should have been a long time ago, but COVID-19 is showing us why all the more reason we need to hit the streets. Well, we can't because COVID-19 is out in the streets. So we have this fucking paradox. But here's what's going to happen, and I think this is what you're alluding to. When people get hungry, when their kids don't have food, when they don't have a way to pay rent, they're going to be landlords. Unfortunately, like, this is just how it goes. It's not good to be a landlord. Like, historically, you're the first one to get got. You know what I mean? Just throughout history. But it's prone to lead to violence, and it's prone to lead to mass resistance on a level that the government, I don't know if they can contain, but it's also going to be a festering ground for COVID-19 unless we find like 1 million masks. If we can get 1 million masks printed 3D, then that's a whole
million
different
mask
conversation.
March, that's what you can call it too.
1 million mask march, man. Honestly,
I mean,
shit, that's a good idea.
Hey, man, sometimes I get those. It's rare, but it happens.
Hey, shit. No, that's a good one. Million mask march.
Yep.
Fuck it.
I mean, look, it's going to be a situation if this goes on much longer, and it's going to, especially with the irresponsible actions of a lot of these states. Now, the states right now, my state's actually doing fairly well at trying to flatten that curve, but we're not an island. It's just like just like the discussion about gun control, right? And you've got states that very, very lax, and then you got states that are nice and closed. Well, guess what? The guns still make it into the places that are closed because we're not a fucking island. And that's going to be worse with COVID-19 because instead of guns, it's people.
That's the grim reality here. Like, as I see us opening up and 1,000 new cases, and no telling how many cases that aren't even being tested, that they're going all these places. Like, it's just one new vector after the other. And I fear, like, it wasn't enough for us to lose 60,000 people last month. I don't know what it's going to take then for us to realize this shit is for real. Conservatives, stop being so fucking stupid and risking your lives and the lives of innocent people who had nothing to do with your stupidity. But a lot of people are going to get. We're going to.
I know what it's going to take. We know what it's going to take. It's going to take for them to get sick. The only time conservatives will feel empathy is when it happens to them. A great example of that, you look at Boris Johnson over in the UK. He got it. He was like Trump. He's like, not a big deal. Whatever. I'm gonna go in here. I'm gonna shake hands with COVID patients, and then oops, you got fucking COVID, and then he almost fucking died, and now he's like, I don't think we're ready to open up yet. Like,
and you know what? But here's the thing. Like, I think those motherfuckers are evil enough to like he'll say that this week, but as soon as he feels and gets his second wind and actually because I think a lot of people don't realize like recovering from COVID-19 isn't really recovering. It means you just didn't die. Right? Because they're like, you still deal with organ failure, you still deal with pneumonia, you still deal with all kinds of things that are like lingering vestiges of maybe not pneumonia. I think they do get you past pneumonia, but like you have all types of problems. Like some people are going to have to be on oxygen for the rest of their lives because they survived. And I think if Boris Johnson just gets just a little bit longer to realize and remember who he really is, the evil bastard that he is, that he'll probably start changing his tune. And I really think that that's where we are. Like, we are dealing with a group,
sociopaths.
This group of this sociopaths. It is a death cult. Yep. Capitalism and greed is a death cult, and they're so desperate to get their profit margins that they're going to send us out into this goddamn plague.
Absolutely, and they've already done so. Their profits are more important than our lives. Absolutely.
That's the grim reality that we're
really
dealing with.
It really is disgusting because you have this class of people, the upper class, the investor class. That I mean, look, you've probably done this, talked about this on your show. I've talked about it plenty of times. You got the people that are going on TV and saying, "Yeah, you know what, Ben Shapiro, newest example, right? Saying, you know what, hey, if Grandma goes out and dies, that's sad, but shit happens. Go ahead and send Grandma out."
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
Yeah, that is the. Let me tell you something, man. The quickness with which they shifted from all lives matter to fuck grandma. They didn't waste any time with that shit. They actually were floating the shit at the very beginning. Larry Kudlow was on CNBC talking about, he's just maybe we just need to try to get mass herd immunity. Surprise, surprise, bitches. We don't even know if people are immune from this. Like, this is the scary thing. People are recovering. they have antibodies, but they're getting sick again. And now the scientists don't know if it's the same virus being reactivated or whether or not they got reinfected through someone else. But that means that there's a good possibility that there's no herd immunity to be had with this. And the first thing these motherfuckers said do was, let's throw Granny out there so that we could create some herd immunity. Like these people, we cannot underestimate the viciousness of the ruling.
And here's the other thing about that too. The people that are getting affected most by this, that are dying in the largest numbers, are people of color, African Americans.
Yeah.
People in the cities.
Yeah.
Detroit.
Yeah.
I mean, Detroit in our state, they're getting hit the hardest.
Yeah.
Whereas you got all these asshole protesters that are going out there. They're from the less populated parts of the state. And so there's that. Yeah. There's that racial angle that's a part of this as well. Yeah. It doesn't affect me. No, it's just killing off of those guys. We don't really care about them. Freedom.
Right. And so here's the thing though. Here's the catch. Like they're enjoying the fact that they live in rural areas. Like, so I did a lecture for a college. I think it was Thursday, and it's a small college in a small town near where I grew up. And as I was talking with the class, we started doing a question and answer session, and you could tell they were like, really, we got to stay in. We got to be quarantined this long. Like, nobody is sick in our town. And, you look at the town and it's small and it's disconnected from the rest of the world. So I get it. Like, I get how you could say, wow, we're good, but you're good until one sick person comes into your town.
And that's it.
Right. And then all of a sudden you're not good because your entire infrastructure is not strong enough to handle this. So what we're going to see is all these people who are kind of casually and being really cavalier about this because it's not happening to their people in their city, quote unquote, their people, is like these rallies you just attended, almost all but guaranteed that you're bringing it back to your small town.
Absolutely. And you know what? I've got some audio from that, from one of those rallies. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
So to paint a picture for you guys listening, right? Not a black person in sight. They all white. Okay, that's important. It's the people's house. Let us in. So they're all crammed in there. No social distancing. They're shoulder to shoulder, right? And they got their guns. They got their Confederate flags in Michigan. Wow. Like, yeah, Confederate state. No, not at all. Not at all. But they're there. They're there. And guess what? They're all going to get COVID. Not all of them, but a lot of them, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is one of the most, the ease with which this spreads. I mean, it all but guarantees that some of those people are going to get sick. And depending on whether or not their local hospital has been inundated, some of them are going to die.
Yep. And that's sad, but they're kind of making their own bed, right? So I'm like an empathetic person. So I look at that, I'm like, I want to save as many lives as possible. I don't care where you're from, right? I don't care your ideology. I care about human life. These people don't. Right. And it's all about me.
Right.
It's all about my freedom, right? It's all about, no, I want to go out and get, I want to get my nails done. I want to get a haircut. That trumps your right to not get sick. And I think, and that is that's bullshit. Absolute bullshit. And by the way, not just in Michigan, there's been rallies everywhere, right? Yesterday, there was an Illinois rally where you had literal Nazi sayings. That's who these people are.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah. It is. It's so. I mean, and you put this perfectly in terms of Gretchen Whitmer and having to defend her, even though she is not a good actor, but she is not being attacked from a genuine position. She's being attacked from a disingenuous position that is being used. One, that if allowed to, it's not just about protecting her from a disingenuous position. It's about protecting us from the narrative that this group is trying to forward. Right? Because it's not only an anti-Semitic and racist group of people, but it's also the group of people who are business owners, a lot of them, who want you to get back to work so that you can start consuming and make them money. So it's like this is the rock and the hard place. It's like you have people like the Democratic Party who's going to do nothing but protect the establishment as it is and pour money into the healthcare industry at all costs to protect it from Medicare for all. But on the other hand, you got motherfuckers who are legitimately a death cult, and so it's like we are between a rock and a hard place, but we have to fight on both both fronts.
And earlier today, I think you saw the Candace Owens was trending, right? And she
yeah, I didn't see that.
No, well, okay. Well, here's what she did. She might have blocked you. That's why.
Yeah, probably it's a good possibility.
But she said this. Apparently, Governor Whitmer believes she's a duly elected dictator of a socialist country. The people of Michigan need to stand up to her. Open your businesses. Go to work. The people, the police think she's crazy too. They're not going to arrest 10 million people for going to work. But again, is Candace Owens going to work? Is she at risk?
Not at all. And see, here's the difference, man. Like on a regular basis, brother, I am, and I know you do it on your show, and I've heard other people do it. Like you and I, we make our money from home. Right. And it's just, and I'm not just going to pick on the commentator class, part of which I'm proud to be a part of. But like other people who can simply work from home. All they needed was an internet connection and they can get their job done. Right. So we are all in a very privileged position, but we recognize that. And that's why we fight on behalf of the people who aren't that lucky to be able to get a universal basic income so that you can sit your ass at home, too, and not have to go out into the plague. Here, that's the difference. It's like we're saying more people need to be able to stay home so that they don't have to get sick. They're saying we're going to use the excuse of people not having money to force people back out.
When they are the ones that are withholding, of course, that money. They're the same type of people. Again, Lindsey Graham, tweeted this out on April 30th, right? He says if you pay people $23 an hour to not to work, they will take you up on it. It doesn't mean they're lazy. It means if you offer them $23 an hour not to work, they'll probably take that over $17 to go to work. Well, the whole point. That's the whole point is you want them to not go to work.
Exactly. And this is the ultimate thing that I think both parties agree on. Both parties absolutely agree on the idea that we cannot allow the American people to realize that the government has been able to take better care, right, of the American people all along. Like we just sent between 5 and 7 trillion when it's all said and done to Wall Street, to corporations and a bailout, millionaires and billionaires. They all got the majority of the share of that, right? How much of that could have been sent to the American people? Well, they don't ever want you to find out that it could have been sent to the American people, because what does that do? That liberates you from the bondage of just going to work, check to check, scratching and surviving, just barely making do. Because if they don't have you in the position, in that weakened position where your preeminent concern is making the next paycheck, then they don't have any control over you, because you can take a step back and say, wait a minute. We can do something different than what we've been doing our entire life. And that's exactly what Lindsey Graham is trying to stop. That's exactly what Nancy Pelosi and the rest of them are quietly just going to allow to happen.
It destroys their entire argument, destroys the entire mask on conservatism. It exposes it for what it is. And it's a bankrupt ideology. That's it. And I include Democrats in that because they are being conservative as well. They're not a leftist party. They're not a progressive party. They're a right-wing party.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they are. And it literally is two sides of the same coin. And here's the squeeze. Here's the rub. The rub is that the opposite side of the coin, the Republican Party, they're out of their fucking minds. They are dangerous. They will gladly see 1 million people die so long as their quarterly profit margin hits its goal.
That's cool.
Right? And on the other side of it, the Democrats are like, well, we're just not going to talk about it. We're just gonna let whatever happens happens. And so like this is the rock and the hard place. Like we are literally having to choose when there are so many other options, and there was a good option in this campaign, but we're having to choose between selling our soul, ignoring the Me Too movement, ignoring Tara Reid's story, and supporting Joe Biden, so that we don't have to deal with the death cult who wants to send everyone out to work in the middle of a goddamn
and that is
play.
Exactly where the Democratic Party wants to be. It's not that they're forced into this position. No, they took this position willingly, and that's the problem. That's what we're calling them out for. That's what we're talking about every single day in our shows, and that's why we get a lot of shit, right? So you want Donald Trump? You gonna vote for Donald Trump? No, that's not what we're saying at all. We're saying that right now the Democratic Party is garbage, and they're choosing to be garbage. Oh, you're just mad that Bernie Sanders didn't win. Bernie Sanders is just one person, right? It could have been anybody else. That and to be fair, Bernie Sanders is important because he has a long history of pushing for these policies. So I'm not like trying to dismiss him or diminish him and his work at all, right? But I'm saying if there were another person that had a history of fighting for these policies and had a history and a track record like Bernie Sanders, it would be that person. And it's not about the person. It's always been about the policies and how long you fought for those policies. And yeah, we are a little bit upset, right, that Bernie Sanders didn't win because of the basically the nature of the resistance and how it happened, right?
Right, exactly.
But this is not what Tara Reid's all about, right? This is not what any of this is all about. It's about trying to hold a party to account that is no longer accountable to the people, that is more accountable to the donors than anyone else.
That's the thing that bothers me so much. People don't realize, like, listen, Joe Biden is one thing, but the Democratic Party's response to Tara Reid is entirely different. And that's the thing that really infuriates me on a level that makes me, I don't think I could ever stand neck and neck with the Democratic Party again, so long as it's being run by this current contingency, this current group of people who would just really sell out their soul at the drop of a dime in order to keep their political power. And I'm like, there's so many of us, like, I've sacrificed a lot, man. Like some of the times I've been poor and on unemployment, it was a conscious decision that I made because I had to hold to my principles. Like the last 2 times that I was unemployed, it was a conscious decision that I made because I was going to hold to my principles. And to be honest with you, on God, I'd do it again. I would make those same decisions again. And so if I have put myself in this kind of position right before for my principles, why on earth would I sell out my principles on the behalf of fucking Joe Biden? Who the fuck is he? He's nobody to me. Fuck him.
Absolutely. And so this goes to a little inside joke that my friends and I have been talking about. My politically minded friends. When you radicalize Ben Dixon, you done fucked up. and not just Ben Dixon, Peter Daou.
Right.
Fucking Peter Daou, dude.
Yeah.
Peter Daou. I remember back in 2015, 2016, I would be doing videos, and I would name drop him. I'd be like, Peter fucking Daou. What a motherfucker.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's the reality, man. It's like mask off. Like I don't know Peter Daou well enough to know his journey, how he came to this, but I can just tell you for me, man, it was a quick transition. Right, because earlier this summer, like not this summer, but last summer. So earlier last summer, I was like, guys, we're going to need to unify after this is all said and done. So let's be nice. Everybody play nice, and get out there and have a clean primary. And then come around when you see what the Democratic Party really showed how soulless they were in embracing a Republican racist oligarch who's literally a part of the ruling elite to come just to stop Bernie Sanders. And I was like, you know what? Absolutely the fuck not. So that's my origin story in terms of radicalization.
Yeah, I mean, look, I started down this road a little bit earlier than you. After the events of 2016, it's like a slow burn. Like I see what the Democratic Party is standing for, and I was like, okay, I hope Bernie Sanders wins, but in somewhere around 2017, 2018. When they're ramping up. I don't know if Bernie Sanders is going to run. Yes, I thought it's a good chance. And so hopefully, hopefully now that he's got name recognition, that he's going to do well in the primaries, because I think we got a full head of steam. I was actually optimistic for a chance, right? Oh, yeah. Bad mistake. Terrible. Don't do that. Like, especially in politics. If you got optimism, oh, boy.
That's the worst thing, man. Like, when you realize... So here's the two side of me. Like, there's like, I think all of us deal in dualities. Like, there's two sides to each and every one of us. My one side is the idealist, right? The idealist in me thought that we could use the system to change the system for the good. How utterly naive and foolish of me, because the pessimistic side of me always said, do you think powerful people are going to let you use their system to take away their power? And so here we are.
I have that idealistic side, and it did show up, and I was like, shit, I should have listened to my pessimistic side that said they're going to fuck you over. They did it. They did it once. They're going to do it again. Powerful people do not let go of their power. And so in kind of a weird way, those who are like, the Democratic Party is shit and it will always be shit, some of those voices, now it's like, I hate to say it, but you were fucking right. And we're, goddamn, like this whole idea about, taking over the Democratic Party, right? So now it's one of those things where, you see every person that's trying to run as a Democrat, a progressive, right, to get into Congress. You got groups like Justice Democrats and all that, the brand new Congress, and I don't know if that's still around actually, but I think they are.
I think they are, yeah.
That are trying to elect progressives, and then you just see the DNC, the DCCC, doing everything they can to squash them, to say, we're not going to give you any funding if you're running as an incumbent, against an incumbent, and we're not going to give you the voter database or anything like that, access to that. So you're kind of on your own. We're going to take the legs out from under you, even though we have a huge structural advantage, because we want to avoid another AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar. We can't have that. But wait, women of color. Right. Yeah, but, we only want women of color that toe the line.
Right. That's that. I mean, and that's the tokenism, right? That's the tokenism that we talked about with the Republican Party. They do it all the time. And lo and behold, here the Democratic Party just did it in a much more masterful way.
And it's the only thing that they're masterful at. I mean, again, you want to look at how they treat the Republicans, right? I mean, a great example is Joe Biden talking about, being asked if Trump has blood on his hands over COVID-19, right? And Joe Biden saying, no, I wouldn't say that. Oh, of course not. In fact, I'm thinking about putting some Republicans in my cabinet, and maybe even a Republican VP. Oh, by the way, newest news, right, that I had read is that Clyburn, who gave him the South Carolina endorsement. Yes. He says, well, you know what, a woman of color, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
For
you don't necessarily.
We don't, you can choose whoever you want. Because you know who I'm thinking that he's going to choose? Amy Klobuchar or Gretchen Whitmer. I think Gretchen Whitmer over Klobuchar.
I think so. I agree. I definitely think that that they've given the middle finger to black voters, and that tokenism was never the thing to trust in and count on. Because listen, like let's walk it through. Kamala Harris, she's in California, and sure they can get a replacement there, but because they have Newsom. Thank you. They have him there to get another Republican, but she doesn't move anybody in terms of a swing state. And now they have Chris Dodd, who's over the VP pick selection. And if you look at the way they decided to go about deny in terms of Tara Reid, that lets you know that they're going with traditional Democratic consulting thinking, right? And so if they're going with traditional Democratic consultant thinking, then the next thing that they're going to do is say, well, we need a candidate, we need a VP pick from a swing state. And if they get somebody from a swing state, that means it's Whitmer or Klobuchar, period.
Michigan. I mean, that's my thinking. Michigan, swing state. Here we go. I mean...
Yeah, and no, that's it. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. So, I mean, I think the problem is that they really think that they think that no one is going to They don't think things will ever change. Right. And I think what's going to happen is that K-Hive, they think Bernie supporters were bad. If they don't pick Kamala Harris, oh my goodness, it's going to be a wrap.
All right, so that was Benjamin Dixon Show. I want to thank him for being here, and hopefully we'll see each other next week, and we'll pick this new conversation up. Thank you everybody for listening to this podcast. Again, cut a little bit short, but don't worry, we'll pick things up next week, and we'll have another longer show with the next guest. And so I'll let you know who that is when I know. All right, guys. Thank you. Here's the Thing. We'll see you next week. Here's the Thing was made possible by your generous donations through patreon.com/TYTNation. Sign up to become a patron and get early access to today's episode. That's patreon.com/TYTNation.